Greetings, everyone, and welcome to part 6 of the Doctor Who DVD Disambiguation. Yes, carrying right along. Today we wrap up our look at the 60s era with the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton's final season. Yeah, so let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Well, the good news, after seeing just how devastated seasons 3, 4, and 5 were by missing episodes, the good news is season 6 is almost entirely intact. There's only, I think, 5 missing episodes out of the whole thing, so that's pretty good. That's not too shabby. Alrighty, so let's start from the beginning, shall we? So first off, we have story number 44, The Dominators. Nice little 5-part story about a pair of world-conquering aliens who show up to, well, conquer this alien planet, and the Doctor needs to stop them. So, good news is all 5 episodes are fully intact, beautifully restored. Actually, this one looks really nice. And, yeah, get the DVD. Next up, we have story number 45, The Mind Robber, in which the Doctor and his companions find themselves in a world where a lot of fictional characters seem to be coming to life. They meet up with a lot of storybook characters and stuff. Actually, this is the first full story that I showed to Rosie. She really enjoyed it a lot. Rosie's my little girl. She's 5, going on 6, and she's really starting to enjoy Doctor Who a lot. It's become sort of a thing that we do together, is we'll sit down and, while we're having dinner and watch an episode or two of Doctor Who. But The Mind Robber, she absolutely loved, and she watched it all the way through a couple of times in the span of one visit, and she really liked it. I thought she'd enjoy it because it has a lot of storybook characters in it and such, so I figured she'd like that aspect of it, and she really did. And the great thing about her is she's been exposed to, I guess, a lot of stuff like cartoons and TV shows and movies and whatnot from all across the span of time. So she really makes no distinction between whether or not something's in color or black and white. She doesn't really care one way or the other. All she cares about is if it's a good story, which is great. I think it's awesome that she already, so young, has that mindset. So she really likes the second Doctor a lot. Next up, we have story number 46, The Invasion. Now, this is a classic story featuring the Cybermen invading modern-day London. It also features the return of now Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, who we previously met for the first time in Season 5's The Web of Fear. So this time, not only is the Brigadier actually now the Brigadier, he's not just a colonel anymore, he's been promoted, but they've actually formed UNIT, the United Nations Intelligence Task Force, which is a special branch of the military devoted entirely to fighting off alien invasions and strange goings-on our good old home planet Earth. So the Doctor meets up with them, and together they battle the Cybermen. Now, this is a huge 8-part story. It's quite a lengthy one. It's not very often they would do stories that long. But it's an 8-part story of which 6 episodes exist. However, it is notable because this is the first time, I guess sort of as a test run, they animated the 2 missing episodes using the existing audio tracks. So this is the first time they'd ever done that, to sort of see what the reaction was, see if the cost would be justified. And for a long time, it was the only story for which they had done that. They've since done it with a few others, like the Reign of Terror. They've got the Moon Base coming out. They got the 10th Planet coming out. They got the Ice Warriors coming out, all getting the animated treatment. And there's a few other stories, like the Crusade and the Underwater Menace, that will likely get that treatment at some point as well. But this was the first time they did it, and it actually looks fantastic. They did a really good job. Now, if you're expecting Disney-quality animation, don't, because it's not. But it's perfectly adequate. I mean, the characters look like the characters and stuff like that. And it's kind of like slightly more detailed Flash animation, I guess would be the best way to describe it. So it's not like full motion, but the faces do have a fair amount of expression and whatnot, and they do look like they're live-action counterparts. And it makes seeing those missing episodes a little more palatable than watching, say, a photo-based slideshow-style reconstruction or something like that. So the main thing is it allows us to experience the story in full, complete form for the first time. Prior to that, there was a VHS release many years ago that basically just featured Nicholas Courtney, who plays the Brigadier, doing bridging narration for the 2 missing episodes. So the 2 missing episodes are episodes 1 and 4, so, roughly in the first half of the story. The story itself is spread across 2 discs, and there's just tons of extras on here. But we'll get into all the extras that are on these DVDs when I do the individual DVD releases reviews later. So there you go. So The Invasion, definitely worth checking out. This is an absolute must-have for 60s Who. Next up, we have story number 47, The Crotons, which apparently the cast used to refer to the adversaries in this as the Crotons. This is not considered one of the better stories of the 60s, but it's fine. It's perfectly adequate, and the cast is obviously having a lot of fun fighting these crystalline alien robot creature things. And most importantly, it's not missing. Yeah, a lot of missing episodes from this. Actually, we'll put this here, from this era. So it's good to have some of the stories intact at least. And it's nice also that they're starting to do the animated episodes for some of the almost complete stories, so we can at least enjoy those. Next up, we have the shortly awaited return of the Ice Warriors in the Seeds of Death. This is the special edition release that just came out a little while ago. Much nicer remastering and lots more extras than the regular edition, which came out a few years ago. If you're wondering what the regular edition looked like in Region 1 land, this is it here. So, there you go. That's the original release of the Seeds of Death. In terms of content, I don't think there's a big difference between them, other than obviously the special edition looks a little nicer and has more extras. Unlike some of the special edition releases, which we'll get into when we get to them, I don't think this really omitted anything significant, so you're not really missing anything if you just get the special edition version. And hands down, the special edition versions have the best looking and sounding versions of the episodes out of any of the releases. So if you're just looking for the absolute best quality versions of the episodes, definitely go for the special edition versions over the older releases. So next up, we have our last batch of missing episodes. Yes, story number 49 was a 6-part story entitled The Space Pirates, of which only episode 2 still exists. And you know what I'm about to show you. You can find that one sole surviving episode on the Patrick Troughton Lost in Time collection. So that is all that exists of story number 49, except, of course, for the full, complete audio track, which you can find on this CD release here. And the good news is, that's it for the missing episodes. Yes, from this point forward, everything exists. Everything is 100% intact. The only thing is, some of the early 70s episodes for a long time only existed as black and white film prints, even though they were originally produced in color. This was the last black and white season, I should mention. The next season, 1970 to 71, was the first season done in full color. And then, ironically, a lot of the color versions of the episodes were lost to the ravages of time and BBC junking policies. And for a long time, they only existed as black and white versions. However, the color has since been restored on all those, so they all exist not only in complete form, but in full color for the first time in almost 40 years for some of them. But we'll talk about that when we get to them. Finally, last but most certainly not least, we have the epic 10-part finale, The Wargames. Yes, they send the second Doctor out with a bang with this one. Not only is this a huge, epic, fast-paced, exciting story with lots of crazy stuff going on, huge cast, lots of cool effects and whatnot, but it's also the first time we get the answer to some long-standing questions about the series, such as, where does the Doctor come from? Who are his people? What are they all about? Well, this story answers all those questions and a whole lot more. It's pretty cool stuff. Absolutely a must-have. Not to mention, it features the second regeneration. Now, the interesting thing is, in this particular regeneration story, they had not yet cast the third Doctor, so they didn't know who he was going to be. So, without giving anything away, really, we see the regeneration begin at the end of the story, and then the episode just kind of fades down and then goes to the end credits. So you got to wait until the next season to see who the third Doctor is going to be. So it was a big deal. Pretty suspenseful. So in this case, they actually did end the season with the regeneration, and that was the start of the tradition of having the final story of an outgoing Doctor being the season finale, and then not introducing the new Doctor in his first full story until the following season. So let's quickly rearrange all of these here into proper chronological order for you. So going from the end, we have story number 50, The Wargames. The only surviving episode of story number 49, The Space Pirates, on the Lost in Time collection. Then we have story number 48, The Seeds of Death. Story 47, The Crotons. Story 46, The Invasion. Story 45, The Mind Robber. And then story 44, The Dominators. And there you go. That is the virtually complete Season 6 of Doctor Who. One other notable thing about Season 6 is that it was the last season where they were trying to do a full 52-week block. This season was 44 episodes. The previous season, by the way, Season 5, was 40 episodes. I forgot to mention that, I realized last time. Sorry about that for those who were wondering. So they did 44 episodes for the final season of the 60s, of which 5 are missing. So there's, 39 of the 44 available. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good solid run. As of the following season, they dropped it down to what would be the norm for a good number of years. The following season was 25 episodes, but 26 became the standard length of the seasons for a very, very long time. Basically just doing a, 6-month block rather than trying to have a new episode every week of the year, barring a few weeks off. But so this was the last super long season. So even though it's funny, because even though the first 2 Doctors were only in the role for 3 years apiece, in terms of the sheer number of episodes they did, it's actually very close to the total number of episodes of the following 2 Doctors, even though the following 2 Doctors were in the role for much longer, but much longer with shorter seasons. But maybe we'll take a closer look at that in another episode at some point. Maybe not as part of the DVD Disambiguation, but just sort of as a little, aside episode of some kind. Anyway, if you're looking to get Season 6, you can get pretty much the whole season right there. Alrighty, that is it from me to you for now. So we'll see you next time for the start of my personal favorite era of Doctor Who, the 70s. Alrighty, see you next time. Until then, thanks for watching, and sayonara. Starting off at the start, one other notable thing to note